Welcome to Table Talk here at the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show, the longest running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world, 13 years strong. We got a great Table Talk show and interview coming your way this week. Diving into the golf world, I love the sport of golf, and yes, I'm calling it a sport. It's not just a game. It is a sport for sure. And joining us is our good friend from Fox Sports Radio of the Lehigh Valley, Mike Raymond, my friend. Thanks so much for jumping on here to get into your recent experience down at the PGA Tour Championship. It's always great talking with you, man.
Yeah, man, it's the sport that beats us up a little bit, especially when we're playing it. I do enjoy playing it. I enjoy covering it, as we had an opportunity to do just a few weeks ago.
I have been golfing since I was 14 years old. I wish that I was better, Mike. I wish that I was a lot better. And I have my ups and downs every year. Like, for instance, last year, I don't know why. I could not hit an iron out of the fairway to save my life, and I would pray that I would actually be in the rough so that I could just get closer to the freaking green. It was an incredible, incredible year last year for me playing golf. Have you ever had those years where where something that has been, quote, simple throughout your entire, quote, golfing career just gave you some trouble every now and again?
Jeff, I'll tell you what, this past off season in the winter, obviously we live in the Northeast, we live in Pennsylvania, It gets cold. I went indoor and I went and took a few lessons, so everything was kind of new. I've only played twice this season.
Okay.
And I'm just trying to relearn a few different things and find what I've been doing wrong. So I'm expecting a little bit more of those type of moments, Jeff, like where things I just thought I could do. And now all of a sudden I just can't do, but it's a sport that I enjoy. And honestly, I thank God that I'm not that competitive, because I know people who are too competitive that go out to the golf course and are expecting to, get into somewhere in the 70s and 80s. And that's just not me. I've accepted that. If I'm hitting in the 90s, I'm having a good day. So,
if I am hitting in the lower 90s and like maybe top 80s, like it's a real good day for me, even after playing since I was 14.
And you said you've been playing since you were 14, and you mentioned the age of the podcast. I think that's right around the time I started getting into golf, and it only took me 13 years to actually take a lesson.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Look, no matter what age you are, you can start playing the sport of golf, and it really is. It's a great sport. And I remember growing up with my dad watching on Sundays mainly, on our couch. My dad was a big golfer. He was in a local golf league as well. Won it a few years in a row, actually. But when we watch the PGA, this is and the PGA, the Professional Golfers Association, an association that's grown so much over the years. And it seems like the PGA really tries to take things one step further as it pertains to the product that they're giving the fans every year. And I wanted to get into that first. Like I mentioned earlier, you were down at the PGA Tour Championship at Aronimink. I always mess up. Aronimink. Dude, I mess it up constantly. Aronimink. My gosh. Well, first I'm wondering, was this your first major that you were at? And I know you were there for Fox Sports Radio, the Lehigh Valley, but was that the first major that you'd been to?
Yeah, in terms of actual majors, yes, I was involved the last time the senior tour came to the Lehigh Valley Country Club in the Lehigh Valley. Yeah. We were broadcasting our show live from one of the tents there. These tour events are just next level, and it's funny you mentioned the evolution when it comes to the game of golf, and I think we were probably hitting it right at the right time, Jeff. You and I probably not too far in age from one another. And we got the Happy Gilmore years that kind of like leveled the playing field a little bit, got a larger audience kind of involved. But, going down to Aronimink, for a few weeks in a row, or a few days in a row, like all week long, we were there, and gave me a whole new appreciation for what these events, what it takes to put on an event like this. It's not just attending a golf tournament anymore. It's kind of like a cross between a sporting event, a music festival, and corporate convention all wrapped in together. And that's kind of what you felt when you were on the grounds at Aronimink. And the club itself did a great job in turning it over and having it be a welcoming environment for everybody who wanted to attend. It was a well-oiled machine. Every fan touch point that was there was just elevated. They had all include, like within your ticket itself was all included with your non-alcoholic beverages and all the food you want all day long. Like every time you go, there's like, oh, just take one thing when you go into the concession. No, people were just grab one. pulling it and refilling it. So they did a great job keeping up that, and they had all these different installations. And I ended up creating a Instagram reel for our listeners and kind of recapped our experience. So go out to Lehigh Valley Fox Sports on Instagram if you want to see what the experience was like from behind the scenes. But whether it be the media center, whether it be watching the putting green, watching some of these guys, and I mean, you're talking like from me to this microphone away from some of the best golfers in the world. And
yeah,
golf has really done a great job of embracing the personality and the atmosphere, and it's far from that very buttoned up image of golf from many years ago that kind of felt exclusionary. Now it's very much more welcoming to all fans.
It really is. And I can say from a television and TV perspective, what we watch on our screens, whether in our living room or whether it's on a device, it's amazing how they're able to keep and capture your attention with a sport that is pretty slow, quite frankly. And I wonder about some of the events that you mentioned there. Whether there are bands playing, whether there is something else going on in a tent there. Whenever we go to sporting events, there's always stuff going on behind the scenes that make the experience like a huge event. What were some of the biggest surprises to you in terms of the operation there that you really saw behind the scenes, Mike?
I think the biggest surprise for all of us, and I'm trying to remember in terms of square footage, like 50,000 square foot merchandise tent. And when you walk into the merchandise tent, there is a live DJ at the merchandise tent and making sure the atmosphere is right when you were shopping through this thing. And it was, it was pretty impressive to watch what they had there. As soon as you walked in off the grounds, because I went 4 times in a working capacity, and I went on Sunday just with a ticket as a patron and enjoyed it for myself. And I'll tell you what, it was pretty interesting to see just all the installations. Charles Schwab had like, let's analyze your swing, and let's take a look over here. And they got High Noon doing this, and Tito's this, and Elijah Craig that, and trying to get you have a couple beverages as well, enjoy your day. And it was actually even more eye-opening because I get to walk around with a friend of mine who actually works for the Golf Channel. And he knew all the camera guys, the guys that were up in the tower, guys who were in the gators following around. He knew a guy who was following around Rory all day, and that was his camera, and he was operating that. So it was just kind of curious to see all this stuff, like whether it be catering or security operations, player services. I mean, they tried to make it so that you don't have to think, you just have to be. You're being present, and then and I think they kind of think of everything, and it's kind of a well-oiled machines at this point.
I would imagine that it would be, because I mean, not only does the PGA Tour have their particular brand, but they're now competing with LIV over in Saudi Arabia. For
the time being.
For the time being, for the time being, and I think that itself too creates another sort of echelon that the PGA Tour has kind of like. LVIV essentially forced PGA Tour's hands in a lot of different ways, and while a lot of these events from PGA Tour perspective have grown over the years, I think maybe LIV kind of forced their hand in a way to, say we need to start thinking a little bit more outside the box.
They're trying to find a more fun way to score. It's certainly more like a party atmosphere at those live tournaments, but when now that the certain funding seems to be coming to an end, we got a bunch of those guys who are going to have to make a decision. And I'm sure there's going to be a way back with the PGA. We've already seen it with some of the major names that have already tried to circle their way back in. And it's less of a talking point now. I think the PGA has kind of flexed their muscles, but the guys who left and got their payday and they got their bag, and they're also the butts of some jokes, but I think their bank accounts will be okay and keep them grounded, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think the jokes, they'll be able to handle them just fine when they take a look at those bank accounts.
Hundreds of millions.
Oh, incredible. But I really like to, some folks, they ask me every now and again about the podcast and how things are kind of behind the scenes, whether I'm talking to or booking guests. I've even gotten a lot of questions about how I do the post-production with the audio version of the podcast as well. And Mike, I was hoping that maybe you could take us behind the scenes of the work that you actually did, you and your colleagues at Fox Sports Radio of the Lehigh Valley, like what the operation was for you all, maybe from the beginning of the day until the end of the day. I don't know. I think that'd be some fun insight for people to know and understand.
Yeah, we try to control the chaos as much as possible. We're pretty self-sufficient. We have some equipment that allows us to be pretty mobile, and we can pretty much broadcast anywhere that has a cell phone signal. And sometimes we need to be a little bit hardwired depending on how many cell phone providers are in that area. But
Right.
we try to be pretty self-sufficient. So from our standpoint, all the coordination was done ahead of time, and the PGA was great to work with because they provided us a great station in the media center for us to broadcast our show live. So we broadcast 4 to 7 every day that week. With our play-by-play schedule kind of factoring in, because we do have Iron Pigs baseball that cut our show short a little bit at sometimes. But no, just from the standpoint of when you walk into the media center, people were so welcoming, willing to help you. You were talking about sitting in front of this massive LED board. And I think that was the coolest thing for me at that time. You can have the information on their app. They have an app that you can kind of follow yourself around the course. But to me, I think the coolest thing was they know where every golfer is on the course right now. So if you go and say, well, Jason Day is in the fairway at 15. Okay, that's cool. And now Scotty Scheffler is over here. He's on the short game practice area over here. So I remember there was about 10 minutes before our show started at 4:00, and I saw that Scotty Scheffler was out at the short game practice area, which literally is you open up the media center door and it's right there. Nice. And I walked out and he was standing 5 feet away from me, just practicing his short game, trying to get up out of the sand and onto the green. And I'm just right there. And, I tried to quick grab a photo and stuff for, our Instagram, but PGA does have some rules you got to abide by. So I try to respect that as much as I can. But, at a certain point, covering these people, you're still a fan at a certain point. This guy's the best golfer in the world right now. And he's out there and he's trying to dial it in just like everybody else trying to warm up for a round of golf here in the Lehigh Valley. So it's a humanizing piece that I got to enjoy. But, when we got into the media center, we had that booth for us. We got to have a live guest on location from the Golf Digest, which was fantastic. We talked to them every week of the tournament leading up, usually on the first day of the tournament on a Thursday. And it's just kind of being amongst everybody who's there to just get every little nugget of information. We ran into some former media members here that used to run through the Lehigh Valley and that are on to bigger and better things now. And it's cool to see. And saw a lot of the Philadelphia sports media down there trying to cover this event that's in their backyard. And I'll save a couple more stories for later when we talk about who I might have seen on the course. But I'll tell you what, it was quite the impressive undertaking, from a technical standpoint. Just being amongst some of the colleagues. I talked to a woman who'd been covering golf for like 30 years in New York City radio, and it was just hearing the stories that she got to experience, and it's kind of a nice experience to be among colleagues that really love this game.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I can't wait to get into some of those stories. But we are going to take a break here, folks. Again, we're talking to Mike Raymond from Fox Sports Radio of the Lehigh Valley, at Mike Raymond LV, over on the Twitter/X, I think on Instagram as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, feel free to get some other plugs out there, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, just take a look as we get into the summer months on Fox Sports Radio. We'll start counting the days down to meaningful football. We'll talk college football every day. We'll still get connected with everybody out there on location when we get out there for Music Fest this summer. So looking forward to this summer as part of the radio station. Of course, all Iron Pigs games can be heard on Fox Sports Radio of the Lehigh Valley.
All right, very good. Folks, we're going to take a break. When we get back, we're going to continue to talk about the PGA Tour Championship that was right outside of Philadelphia at Aronimink. Did I get it right? No.
We'll do it on the other side.
I stink. Oh my gosh.
We'll do it on the other side.
Oh, let's take a break, folks. Here we go. It's needed. All right, we are back. I still can't pronounce a word, hardly in my vocabulary, as you heard right before we went to break. We're talking with our good friend Mike Raymond from ESPN. Geez, that was back in the day. Fox Sports Radio of the Lehigh Valley. Dear Lord.
At one point, that was right.
Yes.
At one point, that was right. Many moons ago.
You have been coming on the show that long, my friend, where I just messed that up. Well,
13 years have been coming on the show, so I've been appreciate the time, Jeff.
It's crazy. It's crazy, man. Well, look, you guys were really there at Fox Sports Radio of the Lehigh Valley to really hype up this event. Right before break, you spoke about, how you had Golf Digest on every day, talking to those folks as well. Can you talk about, how you went about hyping up this event for your listeners and really like what that vibe was, the atmosphere of really doing that.
Yeah, it was something different every day. It was everything from talking about, Governor Shapiro, visiting on Saturday of the event and what that looked like, and trying to get down and talk about the PGA professionals that were out there competing in this event. I think that's the most unique thing about the PGA Championship is you're talking about the guys who are out there as PGA pros and and having a path to be able to compete into a major. And it is a very, very hard path that they have to walk. But there is an opportunity, and we get those great stories. Think back to just a few years ago when Michael Block out of that golf club in California, was playing a Sunday round with Rory McIlroy, and he hits that hole in one. I think it was on 15, and that was just a special moment that every golf professional for sure definitely dreams of, and being able to play amongst the best players in the nation and really the world. These are guys from around the world. Obviously, Aaron Rai, who ended up winning at Aronimink on 2 Sundays ago, he is a guy who's from England. The guy who's from England, and which I love the stuff that's coming out about him, just like a really just not genuinely nice guy, and everyone gives him grief because he wears the 2 gloves, and that's not a very usual to watch a golfer with 2 gloves on. So it's a little bit of a story there, but when you talk about just hyping it up in general, it's everything was different day to day. There was different things to see, and honestly, you could go multiple days in a row and kind of see different things because the weather wasn't very hot until the last day. It got up into like the mid 80s, but there was a lot of wind the first few days of the tournament, so that changed how the course played a little bit and made sure people were trying to stay on the fairway and not take as many aggressive shots, because who knows, you're going to be off to the side and hitting out of the thick rough, and you could drop a ball in some of that rough, Jeff, and not be able to find it for we were actually joking. There was a couple spotters that we got to chatting with. I think it was on hole 12, and they were like just some old guys that were volunteering, and they were just like, "Oh, we have no idea sometimes where this ball is, and that's our job here. We're supposed to be spotting where this ball lands." And then we were like trying to help them out at one point. Right. And but it's a tough job, and it takes a lot because those are volunteers out there, and trying to enhance the product for everybody there. And it was really a cool thing to see, and just hyping up the whole thing in general. Just, you're seeing different people out there on the course day to day. A lot of Philly royalty was in the mix at Aronimink throughout the week. And so it's something different every day to watch out for.
Let's get into some of that Philly royalty that was there. With the actual atmosphere, there was so much of the world of Philly sports that was meshed into this event, whether it was Eagles players being on hand, the crowd chants, of course, as well, that you always get at Philly-based events, and the golfers actually getting into the fun of being in Philadelphia, being a part of that Philly sports scene as well. What did this atmosphere really show you that we normally don't see at a PGA Tour event throughout the season?
I think there's a little levity, especially at Aronimink when you have a Philly sports fans so close. I think Philly sports fans are some of the most informed people out there in the world of sports fans. So when you talk about knowing that Scotty Scheffler is a huge Cowboys fan, you're going to hear some Go Birds after that golf swing happens off the tee box. And some people that I was with who will remain nameless yelled Go Birds after one of the tee off shots on the
Glad to hear. Glad to hear.
It's funny. It's funny to see because everybody kind of just giggles to themselves, but it's all in good fun. There was I guess Rory got into it with a fan towards the end, but it wouldn't be a Philly tournament if we didn't have some kind of controversy with a fan.
Right.
And honestly, it seemed very not as serious as it seemed at the time. But golfers feed off the great energy, and Philly, from all accounts, brought the great energy. And I don't know how many times per day you got to say that guy's name. So like when Scotty Scheffler's walking by, hey Scotty, like I'm sure these guys probably are like so sick of hearing their name.
They probably hate their name at this point, for God's sake. They probably do.
They all have the walk down pat where they kind of just keep their head looking forward enough to see where they're walking, but down enough so they're not making eye contact with any fans. But I thought that was kind of cool. And in terms of Philly royalty, Jeff, I saw Cole Hamels was there. Actually, it's the Larry O'Brien Trophy for the NBA champion and the Stanley Cup were in the house, I believe, on Thursday when I was not there. I was not there on Thursday, but both the Larry O'Brien Trophy and the Stanley Cup in the house on Thursday, which was kind of a cool thing. I know Cooper DeJean was rumored to have been there. I didn't see him there. Cole Hamels, I heard.
I think Jordan Mailata. Jordan Mailata was there.
So he was in like the area near the 17th hole. There's a nice par 3, goes over the water, and that was the famous 70-foot, I think it was 68, but 70-foot putt for Aaron Rai that basically clinched the tournament for him. But Jordan Mailata was sitting in those luxury stands that overlooked the 17th green, and he was kind of getting into it with the crowd. But I have to say that from me to the chair sitting next to me, I didn't realize who it was for a second. But I'm talking, there was one person in between me and Vic Fangio, Eagles defensive coordinator, which was kind of cool. And I was going to, obviously, me as a 49ers fan, Jeff, I almost wanted to go back to those days when he was with San Francisco and kind of just chat him up a little bit. But a friend of mine yells over, like, are you guys going to sign Jalen Carter to a long term? They said like it got turned into like, Eagles talk right there on the course. But, when you're at Aronimink, when you're in a Philly suburb, you're going to get that Eagles sports fan flair.
As it should be, every event. So look, buddy, before I let you go, I know it's a general question. You had so many experiences, during that week that you were down there. What was your favorite story from that week that perhaps not too many folks were aware of?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately the Fangio story gets a lot of love from my friends who are Eagles fans. But, I think just the experience from start to finish, honestly, just being able to see the behind the scenes, operation. I think that was the special part for me, watching the busing that, people were parking in remote parking lots, and they had all these partners volunteering, and they had, corporate, groups and outings, and the whole thing was just special to see. I've been involved in event planning before, years and years and years ago as a young whippersnapper. I was part of the planning team for Music Fest years ago, and that was a large scale event, but not necessarily as large as what this is. I mean, it's getting to that point. Actually, maybe it is a little bit larger because it's multiple days and all that stuff now. But I think you can put it on the same level of that, and we've certainly elevated it here in the Lehigh Valley, and the PGA Championship. They're a well-oiled machine too, and you're talking lines and lines of cable and huge stands that need to be brought in and set up each week. And I'm just kind of in awe of the logistics behind it. And I think that really gave me a true appreciation for not only the competition and the golfers on the course, but everything that goes into an event like this. And we get to look forward to 2030, where I believe the U.S. Open comes back to Marion Country Club right outside of Philly. So that's the next time that we're going to have an opportunity to see it. And I hope to be right back in the media center covering that one too.
Well, Mike, I hope you and I might have an opportunity at some point to get out there on the course and, chop it up. And just when I mean by chopping it up, I'm talking about chop up the actual course with a lot of divots, man.
I'm going to try my best not to do that the rest of the year, but I know it's coming. It's coming.
Again, folks, he is Mike Raymond from Fox Sports Radio of the Lehigh Valley, at Mike Raymond LV on various social sites out there. My friend, always great talking to you. This was a lot of fun, getting outside the world of football and baseball and everything. Just a lot of fun talking about golf. Come back. Let's talk more golf down the road. I'd love it.
I'm all about it, buddy.